channel. And if this is your first time, welcome. This is one in a series of Cozy Things chats where I have friends come on and they tell me 10 things that they find cozy. And there's a whole range within what different people find cozy. So I always love getting to hear about what they think is cozy to them. And the friend that I have on this time is Chelsea from the channel Voyage of a Time Wanderer. Welcome, Chelsea.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here today and getting to chat about some cozy things.
Yes, it's going to be great. And Chelsea reads a lot of historical fiction and classics. And we both really love Victorian literature. And also it has been so fun. We've gotten to know each other well, being co-hosts of the A Year in Mitford project, which is now going over a year. And we're going to make it all the way through the Mitford series together, which is so fun.
Yeah, we're getting close. It's like down to the final few books here.
Yes, we're getting very close. So we'll all kind of have to grieve together when we're done. Yes. So I guess we can just dive right into your list. What is the first cozy thing on your list?
The first cozy thing on my list is some books, and they're books that you've heard me talk about before, and that is Stuart McLean. And
yes.
This is my beloved box set of his first 4 bind-ups. So for non-Canadian viewers, Stuart McLean is, or was, he's passed away now sadly, but he was a Canadian radio host who had a radio show called The Vinyl Cafe, where he would bring on different like musical guests from around Canada, and then the last 20 minutes or so of his show were dedicated to him reading a short story that he had written. Typically, it would be one of his Dave and Morley stories, and so that's what these books are a bind-up of. So Dave and Morley are a couple who live in the suburbs of Toronto, and they have 2 children, Stephanie and Sam. And when we start the books, or when we start the series, I guess, his children are quite young, and we kind of follow in real time as the children grow up. Family passes through different events, and they are so funny. And let me just pull out, even the covers of these are just so cozy and sweet. Like we have curled up on the couch with a dog, or like riding a tandem bike by yourself. Yeah, they're just, to me, like the ultimate cozy stories to read, because they're just like sweet family moments interspersed with like really truly hysterical things, like laugh out fun. Definitely like an automatic pick-me-up if I'm like having a bad day or something, and like just going to read one of his stories or listening. A lot of his readings of his stories are still available as podcasts. So like on Spotify or Apple Podcast, you can still hear him reading a lot of them, and like just the inflection of his voice and everything is so comforting to me that, yeah, he's just, the stories are wonderful.
That's wonderful. And it seems like they're very kind of slice of life stories. So like you say, a lot, kind of a range of mundane but humor and heart in them. And it just sounds like a nice mixture.
Yeah, there's nothing like crazy remarkable or out of the ordinary about any of the things. It's just like scenarios that you could kind of see yourself ending up in, like when he gets asked to like babysit his neighbor's sourdough starter while she goes on vacation. Like it starts dying and he doesn't know, like he's fed it the wrong things. It's like, oh my goodness. Or like Morley, the kids are kind of school age, she's home alone more and wondering what to do. She decides to join a book club, and it like goes all awry when all the people's conversations are like way over her head, and she realizes there's like an established order to like the seating plan and everything at this book club, and it's like oh, really funny. Or going through a car wash and realizing you forgot to like shut the trunk and it's going to get water inside, so you try to like get out quickly, and then it's the car wash is over.
Yeah, I think comedians are really and comedic authors are just really good at finding those kind of everyday things that when you see it written about, you're like, yes, that is such a struggle. And it's just I don't know, very comforting to find someone who's written about it in a very comforting way.
Yeah, I love his book so much.
Oh, very fun. Very fun. All right. The second thing on your cozy things list.
The second thing is comfort movies, and I have 3 that I want to specifically mention as like my go-to cozy evening comfort movie. The first is Pride and Prejudice 2005, which is like controversial Pride and Prejudice opinions, but
This is a safe space, Chelsea.
I love the 2005 Pride and Prejudice, especially because it is like movie length. So if you just want to watch a movie in an evening, you can actually like watch it and finish it in.
That's a very good point. Yes. And you know what? I agree with Katie from Books and Things. She has said if she could take the screenplay from 1995 and the cast from 2005, like I definitely prefer Mrs. Bennet, Jane, Darcy from the 2005.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My second comfort movie is The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, the first Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants movie. I love that movie so much. Those books were like one of my teen favorites, which I haven't reread actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, like I literally haven't reread them in.
I'm kind of scared to reread them because I adored them as a teen. And yeah, that first movie, I can remember going to see it in the movie theater in the summertime. And yeah, oh, such a good movie.
Such a good movie. The scenes in Greece, and then like just the ones that are just at home and dealing with like stuff at home. It's just such a good movie, and it's I've many times that I know like all the scenes by heart.
That's so fun.
And then my third comfort movie I did mention in the last Mitford Zoom, and that is P.S. I Love You.
Oh,
it's like not that comforting because it's very sad. But I feel like, especially like if I'm kind of having a bad day and I want like an excuse to cry, I feel like it's the perfect movie to put on. And then it's like, I'm just crying about the movie.
We are definitely kindred spirits in that. Like I love if I need something to push me over the edge, I love to have something to cry to. And those, you know, one of those movies that you're like, this will just push me over. And then I feel genuinely less overwhelmed by the original thing that I wanted to cry about after just having that release.
It's like I don't have to have cried over the silly thing that's stressing me out in life. I've cried over this sad movie, so it's like it's a legitimate cry.
Yes.
But I love just the concept is so sweet of this husband like putting together all these letters and little mementos and things for her after he's passed away is so sweet. And then obviously the trip to Ireland is just like ultimate cozy travel vibes.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I have only seen it once and it really broke me, but I definitely see it has some like it has some coziness to it in there.
Yeah. And the soundtrack is really good with some like kind of good indie folk, Celtic kind of Irish songs. So some of the songs from the soundtrack are actually on my like regular listen playlists.
That's awesome. Yeah, it pops up in my reading music occasionally. P.S. I Love You, and I've enjoyed what I've heard from it.
So those are my 3 comfort movies, which are my number 2. And then my number 3 is houseplants in general and gardening, my balcony garden. I just love plants. Especially, I
love that too. You don't let not having a big garden stop you from taking care of plants.
Yeah, I in the last like 2 years, really since 2020, when I was home so much because I was working from home, and it was like I hadn't really done anything with my balcony, and I was always dreaming about like, oh, one day when we're not renting anymore and I have a yard, it's going to be so nice to have a garden. And it was like, I'm home like 24 hours a day. I need to make my balcony into something nice where it's like be like living space for us. And I just find it so cozy, like the whole experience of going to the nursery, picking out plants, gardening, like planting them up, watering them every day, and then sitting there and getting to enjoy them is so much fun. And I love houseplants like in the wintertime, especially here when it's like snowy for 6 months out of the year. Like have some things that are green, alive, and kind of look like spring, even though you know like it's like another 2 months till spring. Like I just went yesterday and picked up some new plants because I'm like, yeah, we probably have snow for like at least another month, and I'm really craving spring, but I can bring some greenery and life into my apartment. So I really enjoy that, and having that as like a decoration element in my home.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think also being like spring, it wasn't a figment of my imagination, right? Like it's going, it's going to come again. So do you have any nearby that would be easy to show?
Oh, I have one right here. This is
Oh,
my
perfect.
my ZZ plant, ZZ plant, also called Zanzibar gem sometimes,
That's awesome.
which is
Oh,
really
so
cool.
nice.
I have, if I just rotate here, I have
Mhm.
Swiss cheese vine hanging from my curtain rod.
Oh, I love hanging vines. That's so cool.
It's really fun. Yeah, because I am renting, so I can't really not supposed to be putting too many nails in my walls. I do have I'm like looking at this was nailed. But that's a little like picture hanger kind of nail, whereas I feel like a plant hanger nail needs to be like a bracket that's like actually like hammered in. So I was like, oh, I wish I could have some hanging plants, but I can't because I can't nail brackets in or anything. And then I realized like, oh, I have curtain rods and these just have little like S hooks. I can hang
Such a good workaround.
all my curtain rods have plants hanging now.
Now, do you name your plants?
I do not. No. I've
That
named my
could be fun.
I named my sourdough starter, actually a literary name. I named her Maisie Dobes. Like dough.
I didn't get it at first.
Yeah, Maisie Dobes.
That's fun. I approve. I thoroughly approve of this. Yes, we both love the Maisie Dobbs series.
Yeah, that's I'm like, oh, it's like a strong independent sourdough starter.
That's
But no, I
amazing.
don't name my plants. I know like I learned their scientific like what their type of plant they are, but I don't name them. I never really got into the naming. Like I don't name my car. I don't name my
I was never into that. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I guess are we to number 4?
number 4, and number 4 kind of ties off of my balcony garden, and that is something that makes summer really cozy for me because our last 2 summers have been super hot, which is hard to feel cozy in. And I have really started loving doing homemade iced tea and homemade lemonade, like homemade lemonade really.
Yes.
Just so there's just nothing better than on a hot summer day being able to make your own lemonade, and I like spicing it up with some little like garden accoutrements. So I usually pick up rhubarb at the farmer's market, and I like making rhubarb candy where you like I take like a peeler and I peel them into strips, and then I dip them in soak them in a simple syrup, and then you bake them until they're like crunchy, and so they're like sweetened crunchy rhubarb.
Oh my goodness.
But then I have rhubarb simple syrup. So then I use my rhubarb simple syrup to make the lemonade.
Oh.
And then add lemon balm from my balcony garden. And it's like the perfect summer drink.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, that's definitely like lemonade done gourmet.
Yeah.
Have you had rhubarb pie?
I haven't. I've had rhubarb crisp, like rhubarb crumble.
So it'll be like that, but with crust. And that's
yeah.
something that I think just tartness is not appreciated enough. And rhubarb pie is really, really lovely. Like, I mean, I love chocolate as much as the next person, but it's nice to have some variety. But that candied rhubarb and putting it in lemonade sounds just so delicious.
It's quite good. my I used to always make like rhubarb crisp or strawberry rhubarb, like a compote for ice cream.
Oh.
So yeah, whenever I make rhubarb things, it always reminds me of my grandma. And then
that's so nice.
Yeah, and then I end up with this big jar of rhubarb simple syrup that lasts in the fridge for like a week, and I just am making lemonade like nonstop.
That's awesome. All right, and now we are to number 5.
Number 5 is rereading childhood favorites, and I have 3 specific childhood favorites to mention, but just in general, it's so cozy to go back to like books that you have good reading memories from when you were young.
Yes.
And already like know the plot super well, and you can just like kind of like re-immerse yourself in the story and in all the memories. So the 3 that specifically stick out is like ones that I go back to over and over again from my childhood. The first is the Swallows and Amazon books by Arthur Ransom, especially the first one, like the Swallow and Amazons. The first book is, I just love it.
This is a series I keep neglecting to try, and I
You've not
hear
read.
endless good things about them. I know. I didn't know about them as a kid, although my dad owns them, so he may have mentioned them, but I just have no recollection. But now, just people who like classics and children's literature, this is one that they just love.
I think you would really, really, especially the first one. Like that's the one that I always go back to. It's got like children in the Lake District in England in the 30s.
Check, 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 check.
Go camping. Like most of the book is them camping and having to like row across the island for fresh milk and like building a little campsite together and then going off sailing. It's like,
oh my goodness.
So it's such like an idyllic childhood scene. Like camping all summer and just like rowing out to visit your parents. Like
well, and you know what? Also, what has held me back is it's silly, but I have a negative association because the first time I tried to read Swallows and Amazons, I was pregnant, but like first trimester pregnant and super nauseous. And so I just remember like sitting and feeling nauseous while reading it. And so I did not give it a fair chance at all. But now you're reminding me, I'm like, maybe middle grade March, everything will be just fresh and give it a try again.
I mean, you have one of your children called Arthur. I mean, it's meant to be Arthur Ransom. I wondered, I'm like, I wonder if she's like a really big Arthur Ransom fan, if that was like part of the motivation. And then you haven't even
and some people think like King Arthur, but it was just, we just liked the name. So that's so funny.
Now, if you end up enjoying, there's also some TV adaptations, probably from like the 70s or 80s of the Coot Club and the Big Five. And those were like on repeat in our house growing up.
And then I've also seen there's like one from the 2010 somewhere in there, very recent, of Swallows and Amazons that looks pretty good.
Yeah, I've watched it. It was also really good. It's not like, it doesn't have the childhood nostalgia that the Coot one does, but it was a really good adaptation because I think there was one that I'd seen from the 90s or something that wasn't very good, but the recent one I did really enjoy.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. All right, in the second book.
Yeah, the other two, speaking of books that you haven't read yet that I'm trying to pressure you to read, is the War series, which are also like peak childhood nostalgia and coziness because it's like Victorian era miniature people and miniature things, which is like so cozy. Like all the little things that they borrow to make their house, where it's like, oh, we're using like a thimble as a cooking pot, and have like a postage stamp as artwork and stuff like. Oh. And the illustrations in that are so cute. Like they're the little like pen and ink kind of style.
Yes. Yeah. It has all the makings of books that I know I would like. I think it's that if I could sit with them as read alouds or listen to them on audio, that would be, I just know they would suit me perfectly then.
Yeah. And then the last ones are the Narnia books, specifically the first one, because that's the one that I reread a lot when I was a kid. I didn't really read the rest of the series until I was an adult, so I enjoyed them, but it doesn't have the same like cozy nostalgic factor. But The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is like my perfect winter comfort read, and the film too, I love.
Yes. And I think the pacing is especially perfect in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I think particularly The Voyage of the Dawn Treader can just feel really long-winded. And I just, there really is something special about The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Now, have you seen the very corny, but still charming BBC miniseries adaptations of Narnia?
I don't think I have. I think I've seen like a trailer or something where it looks like the animal costumes were like very creative.
Creative, that's a very polite Canadian way of putting it.
Not 2010 CGI kind of style.
Well, okay, so a couple of thoughts. One is the animals actually are supposed to be really big. So like the newer movie, which I do like the new movie, I love both of them. They're not supposed to be the size of a normal beaver. They are supposed to be like very big.
Human-sized beavers.
Yeah, like human-sized beavers, which I would not want to interact with a human-sized beaver. But I mean, it is corny, but it's also very cozy. But this might be one of those like, I grew up watching them, and so I can forgive the corniness and just enjoy the coziness. So I can't guarantee you what you'll think, but for now, they are on YouTube. We'll see how
Oh,
long they stay there.
I might have to give them a go then before winter ends, because I feel like it's like a go-to winter kind of classic for me.
Yes. Yeah. They just, I don't know. There's something about them. They're like kind of awful, but I still love them.
Yeah. I feel like that's the way with a lot of like childhood movies where you're like, I don't know if this is actually good or if I just have like a lot of memories attached. So it was like is it these are 70s, the Oliver musical? Like,
I've never seen it.
oh my goodness. My sister and I swear no one else in our library system had a chance to borrow that VHS because it was always at our house. And then when we'd return it, we just get it out the next time. Like, I swear there's some books and movies that like no one else ever read, because between my sister and my cards, like it was just always at our house. But the Oliver musical, like when I try to watch it again, I'm like, this is kind of strange.
Yeah.
This is not really a story that's that, like, it's a way sadder than I remember. I'm like, this is not really that childhood.
Oh.
Like,
yeah, I guess maybe
things, right?
Maybe thankfully, like it went over your head as a kid. When
Totally went over our head. Like, yeah, I won't spoil things, but there was like events where we had like a totally different narrative in our minds of what had happened. And then when I watched it as an adult, I'm like, oh, this is actually like quite depressing.
So sad. That is sad. Oh, yeah. Yes. Okay, so I think, are we on to number 6 now? Is that right?
Number 6. And number 6 and 7 are kind of connected. Number 6 is salt lamps and slash fireplace videos, both of which kind of have like that like fireplace campfire vibes. I love my salt lamp. We have one in our bedroom, and
when you say salt lamp, it looks like a big salt crystal, right?
Yeah, like this one.
Yes. Oh yeah, my in-laws have one and I really like it.
Yeah, it gives such a cozy, warm, like orangey kind of light that totally makes me feel like I have a campfire nearby or something. And then just this summer, or just this Christmas time, we discovered fireplace videos on YouTube, which I like all through my teen years made so much fun of people who would buy like the fireplace DVDs and stuff. And then I became that person who like every evening was like, oh, let me turn on my fireplace video before I go to cook. Like,
then you became like a fully fledged adult.
Yeah, actually super cozy because we don't have a fireplace in our apartment. And I love like got the crackling noise, and it kind of makes like that glow. Like, I would just sit there and read by fireplace.
That's awesome. I love it. You know what else that makes me think of that is in the same category, and these have gone out, I think, out of style. Maybe they'll make a comeback, but are lava lamps.
Yeah, I had one as a teenager in my room.
Those are fun. And my dad had one, and I was asking him the other day where it went, and he said one of our friends, he doesn't remember who it was, they took it and they shook it, and it just never went back to how it was after that.
Really? I didn't know you could like break them. Besides,
well, maybe because it was, I mean, it was probably 30 years old at that point. So maybe, I don't know, it was on its way out anyway. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah,
very cool. Yeah, I think lighting is, I mean, I cannot stand like blue light bulbs, like, or the, you know, the white crisp. I love the yellow warm light bulbs.
Yeah, and I love like candles and stuff, but then I have to worry about falling asleep. Whereas if I fall asleep with my salt lamp on, like nothing happens.
So true. It's very true.
So the same with the fireplace video. There's like no
you didn't have to put the fire out.
Turning my house down from falling asleep. Like, I mean, I usually use tea lights for that reason, because if you fall asleep with a tea light on, they just burn themselves out. But
that's a very good point.
Yeah, I love our salt lamp, and we have it hooked up now to Alexa, so I can like turn it on and off from bed without getting up.
That's amazing. That's like, you know what, Alexa, she's the new, like, you know, like the clapping lamps.
Oh yeah.
That's like the new version of it.
It is. Yeah, we just got one at Christmas time, and it is very handy for that, for not having to get out of bed when you're already cozy.
That's awesome. Which is essential in winter. It's like, oh.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want to, once I've like warmed up my spot, like.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, very fun. All right, so are we on to number 7?
Yeah, and number 7 is kind of connected because it is like the sound side of creating coziness, which are ambiance rooms and or the sound of rain. So I grew up in Victoria, which is it's like right near Seattle. So it's like basically the same climate as Seattle. So I grew up with a lot of rain. and I had an upstairs room in our house. So my bedroom like had the roof that directly.
Oh, yes.
So I love like the sound of rain on windows and like just like a good rainstorm. I love, but where I live now, we do not get a ton of rain. We have like the snowy, clear sky winter, which is supposed to be a perk. And it is like, I appreciate when it's like cold out, but sunny, but I also really miss rain. So that's why I've gotten into like ambiance rooms.
Yeah.
And there's cool ones on YouTube now.
Oh, and I think my favorite one, and this isn't, I don't think it counts as an ambient room because it's just paintings, but it's raining and classical music is playing in the other room. So it's like, right? Yeah. It's like someone is playing the piano in the other side of this big mansion you live in. And it's raining and it just is the most comforting thing. I love to nap with that on.
I love like my favorite ones are all like Sherlock Holmes themed. So I love like rainy day in 221B with carriages passing and Sherlock practicing his violin from the other room.
Yes.
That's like my peak ambiance room.
And I love, it's just they're so well constructed, the people that make them, that the carriage will stand, you'll hear it on your right and then gradually it passes and you hear it on your left.
Yeah.
They're so cool. There's also,
and the pictures, like the little flickering of like a candle or something. It's
yes.
Like,
yes. And there's one Sherlock Holmes one where you hear him kind of like muttering to himself occasionally.
Oh, like he's like,
yeah, I don't know if I could
using as we listen.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I really like, there's a Victorian Seamstress room.
I've heard that one.
Yeah, so you hear a lot of like old sewing machines.
That's nice.
Yeah. I'll try to find all these ones I'm speaking about and
okay. Yeah, so if I have like a good ambiance room on and my salt lamp on, it's like the perfect cozy ambiance.
You're like, do I ever need to go anywhere? No, I do not. No. My armchair travel with my ambient room and my book.
True. Like especially like with classics, when you find like the perfect ambient room that is like connected, kind of like carriage ride or something. I'm in a carriage ride in my book. It's like, it's so good.
Oh, I love to be themey. And also Tiffany from Beautiful Minutia, I noticed, because she homeschools her daughter, and she'll put on, when her daughter's doing some kind of book work, she'll put on an ambient room.
Oh, cool.
And yeah. So like working on a bunch of math problems. And so now Peter likes that. It can't be when I'm like teaching him a concept, because he'll keep like craning his head to look. But when I set him up with some work, then he likes to have something on.
Oh, that's fun. Do they have like schoolhouse themed, like Victorian schoolhouse? Yeah.
What's funny? I haven't tried that. What's funny is one time I tried to find, we were doing like an Uno tournament. And so I was like, let's find a casino ambiance. And they did have it, but it was not relaxing. It was like all of the, the slot machines. And it was not cozy noise. So I tossed that idea.
Yeah, I can't really do like the coffee shop ones, don't really work for me.
Yes.
Real life noise.
Yes. Although I do like if it's like a coffee shop with jazz. So there's different kinds of rooms. Some will have music and some don't. And I actually really like the ones with music. So I can enjoy it then. Oh, and another one with music that I love is it's a Harry Potter one, and it's Shell Cottage. And so you hear like tinkling of like wind chimes and the waves lapping in, and it plays it's the very emotional Harry Potter music. So like the 7th part 1 and part 2. And I really love like the intense emotions in those. And that's one when I want to just like sit and soak up a wonderful book. I love having that on.
I think I've seen that one, and I listened to it while reading our Sense and Sensibility, because
that's perfect.
Cottage, like especially in the newer adaptation, kind of has a Shell Cottage vibe. Like it's like seaside cottage. So yeah, it's a good pairing.
Now, do you know in that newer adaptation of Sense and Sensibility, because I'm a total dork, I've looked it up and you can stay at that cottage. Like it's, yes, it's like a bed and breakfast.
Oh, wanderlust goals.
Yes, totally. Definitely. Oh,
That's so
all
smart.
right. Yeah, I know. That's actually, that comforts me, you know, when you see Pemberley looking so beautiful in period dramas, like most of these big palatial estates, you can actually go visit if you go at the right time.
Yeah.
So knowing that at some point in the future, I possibly could visit Pemberley, I just find comforting. All right, so are we on to number 8?
Yes, and number 8 is books with changing seasons, or books where the seasons are like a big part of the story. And I feel like this is kind of skewed towards classics because I don't know, I feel like a lot of the more modern books I read take place over a shorter period of time.
Yeah.
Like they don't span a year or more. They're kind of like a couple days or a couple weeks, but they don't really have the full like seasons of a character's life, whereas a lot of classics are more like it's a year or 2 years or 5 years of following along. And I just love books that have good descriptions of seasons changing, particularly like spring and fall, like good descriptions of fall. So obviously Lucy Maud Montgomery is like the queen.
That's who I think of like first for that. She's just she paints pictures with her words.
Yeah, so like always in the springtime I end up wanting to read Montgomery because it's just the way she writes about changing seasons and nature is so beautiful. And it always, I've been to the Maritimes, but it always makes me want to visit the Maritimes. And like obviously the books, but every book I've read by her, even ones that are outside of the Anne series, it's just like the nature writing and the descriptions of the changing seasons are impeccable.
Yes. Oh, the Blue Castle.
Oh,
yes. I remember when I first read the Blue Castle, I was only in the first like 20%. And I'm like, like not much nature writing happening. And then it happens and it's just dripping with beautiful nature descriptions in pretty much every chapter. And it's so
good. Other one that comes to mind automatically is The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arnim.
Yes.
Which is so cozy and has such good nature writing and like garden descriptions and descriptions of all the flowers and the like coastline that they're seeing. Yeah. I read it last spring for the first time and it was like rocketed to the top of
yes. And I love that the ads start out like for those who love wisteria and sunshine, something like that.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I love everything about that book. I feel like it's one of those books where I could reread it so many times and get different things out of, like depending on what stage of life I'm at, because the characters in that book have such a wide range of.
That's such a good point. Yeah.
We have like the young single woman. There's the 2 people who have marriages that they're working on, and then there's like the older widow. And so I feel like it's like a book that no matter where you're at in life, you could read it and like pull little nuggets of wisdom and truth that are appropriate for like wherever you're at. So
yes. Yeah. And I really like that too. Middlemarch is that way.
Oh, okay.
You have people in all different stages. And even I've only been like 6 years, you know, age difference in the 3 times that I've read it, but I've already like kind of been like, oh, why didn't I notice this character as much, you know, that time I read it. So yeah, that shows it's a special book that can give you different things, different times that you read it.
Yeah, I really noticed that like the first time I reread the Anne books as an adult, like the amount that I connected more with Marilla compared to when I read it as a child, when I was obviously like all about Anne and how much I like related to Anne, but then like reading it as an adult, I feel like Marilla is such a deep character, and you're like, you see so much growth in her too that I like totally went over my head when I was just like, oh, Marilla, yeah.
Yeah, she's so cold, and then you kind of are like a lot more fascinated by her backstory, and also you see it's subtle, but how she really kind of just grows in her love for Anne and in the amount of warmth that she shows.
Yeah, she just really like opens herself up to being connected to people, and it's such a beautiful journey in that book. And yeah. So then I have like a 0.5 for this. So this is 7.5, which is the Vivaldi Four Seasons concertos. because that ties into seasons, and I love like listening to that season's concerto when it's the season.
Yes.
Listening to spring when it's spring, or fall when it's winter when it's winter. Like, yeah, I love my favorite.
I maybe controversial. I think winter is the best out of the four concertos. I really like winter.
I like all of them. I don't know if I could pick a favorite. I do like spring, but I like all of them. I love like, yeah, when the seasons are changing, listening to that season's concerto.
Really fun. That's what I'm very nostalgic about. My dad played that very regularly in our household.
Yeah, we had a CD of it too.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? That's going to be like unusual to like future children, like, oh, you had CDs of it.
Yeah. No, because we don't even have a CD player anymore.
Yeah, like, we ours, they just, to buy one that would last long, it doesn't feel worth it now. Because it's just so, I mean, I will be glad for the CDs that I own. We can play it in our DVD player if we need to. If the internet goes out, I'll still have access to some music. But it's just so nice just to click a button,
Yeah.
All right, so then we move to 8, is it?
I think 9.
9, okay.
Yeah. So number 9 is my favorite. I don't want to say guilty pleasure read, because I don't really believe in like guilty pleasure reads.
I second that.
But if I had a guilty pleasure read, it would be Amish Romances.
Yes.
I love Amish Romances, and like there's a time in university when that was pretty much all I read outside of like academic course.
Well, because you needed something for your brain to rest.
Totally fluffy and cozy, and that was like my go-to. And it's still like if I'm in a reading slump or I don't really know what to pick up, I kind of am like in a funk with my books, like I'll pick up one of those and it automatically resets.
I remember I've only read like one series, but I was so swept away by it. And it's so funny because the first time I read it was when we had moved to Pennsylvania, and I was going to a Mennonite high school. And so it was by Beverley Lewis, and it was Abram's Daughters, which is the series.
I know them. Yeah. She's one of my two favorite, like Beverley Lewis and Beth Wiseman are my two go authors. I feel like there's just that, besides the fact, like obviously like they have like a sweet romance, and they're always like super sweet, clean romances, but they also, because they're always like on a farm, and there's lots of like cooking and baking and like sewing and farm chores and stuff.
Yes.
It just make it so cozy and comforting, and it's like there's always such good descriptions of food and like carriage rides. Yeah,
totally. Now, I had a friend that she worked in a deli, and one day an Amish boy came in and asked her if she wanted to go on a buggy ride with him, and she didn't do it. And I'm like, oh, why wouldn't you?
Could you say no? How could you? That's the start of like 15 Amish romances.
The forbidden Englisher girl.
That's like painful.
I know. And it's like, I mean, if he ends up being not nice, you can just hop out of the wagon. It's not like it's going that fast.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
so
that's fun. Yeah, I haven't read any. What's that?
Those are books like I often reach for if I just want something like super comforting and very cozy.
Now you're making me want to see if I want to reread those Beverley Lewis ones. Oh,
yeah.
I was very swept away by that storyline. All right. And so then we come to the last cozy thing. And what is it?
I feel like it's the most obviously cozy on the list, and that is knitting, which is just pure cozy. I love literally every stage of knitting. Like I love going to the store and like touching 500 yarns to find the perfect like the perfect softness and everything. I love like browsing for patterns, and then obviously like the process I really enjoy, especially with a good audiobook. It always kind of feels like magic. Like it's like I'm just taking these 2 sticks and a ball of string and making something, and then I get to either wear or gift something that's very cozy. And because I live in Canada and it's winter a lot, like I feel like I get good use out of like I can make like
Yes.
lots of hats and scarves and cowls and like little glove things, and we use them a lot. So that is my number 10 for my cozy list. It's just
Awesome.
yeah, especially like fall and winter. And then if you have a bigger project where it can actually kind of start working as like a bit of a blanket,
Yes.
have like a sweater or a blanket, and then like you're starting to be able to like use it while you're still knitting on it.
Yes. Yeah. When I made a blanket last March, I loved that. Like, just let me drape it over myself while I continue to work on it.
Yeah, and I just looking through all the patterns and like people's like on Instagram or on Ravelry, like all the ideas people have. Like
Yes.
it's just so much fun. And I love, obviously with an audiobook is like the
Oh,
perfect afternoon. And I really struggled with audiobooks. Like I used to hate audiobooks until
really?
I think because like all through like my teens and early 20s, I hated audiobooks. I couldn't get into them. My mind would wander so much, and it wasn't until I discovered like knitting or cross stitch or puzzles, it's like something to do with my hands while I was listening, and then at the same time speeding it up to like 1.8 to 2.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I can't listen at one speed now.
At one speed, I'm like I can have like a whole thought in between words and then I'm gone.
Yes. No,
But
I agree. I agree. And also, I don't think if someone was reading to you in person, I don't think they would read as slow as many audiobook narrators read.
and I agree, and I think it's proved by the fact that if you listen to, I've found at least audiobooks that are narrated by the author, I can
Uh-huh.
never do as fast. Like I find an audiobook narrated by the author, I max out at like 1.2 to 1.5. And
Oh,
I think
that's so
I
interesting.
swear they read it at a more natural pace because it's their work. I don't know.
Yes.
I've just noticed that when I listen to like something narrated by the author, I can never listen to it as fast. And I think maybe people who are like hired to narrate have
Yes.
like mode they go into that isn't totally natural. I don't know.
Although when someone is very slow at narrating, then I'm extra excited at all the time I'll get to shave off of the audiobook. I'm like, thank you for being a slow talker. This audiobook is not going to be nearly as long as I thought it was.
The non-stop like calculations. Okay, multiply it by 60, divide 0.1.85. Ooh, oh, what
Yes.
a night. Ooh, I've saved another half hour.
It's like when you're driving on a long road trip and you're going a little bit faster than the GPS thinks you're going to, and then you just keep shaving off the minutes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, well, thank you for sharing your cozy things list, Chelsea. This was so much fun. And I will, of course, link Chelsea's Instagram and her channel down below. And yeah, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. This was so much fun. And I'm, even more excited now to have an afternoon to spend doing cozy bookish things.
Perfect.